Hello and welcome to Capital Connection with me, Kamran Yousaf. It is a show where we discuss issues that dominate Pakistan's national scene. Like always, let me first introduce my panelists. We have with us in the studios Mr. Tariq Pirzada. He is a well-known political commentator and analyst. And Mr. Raja Faisal. He is a journalist and also analyst. Many thanks to both of you joining us tonight on the Capital Connection.
My pleasure.
US President Donald Trump has written a letter to Prime Minister Imran Khan seeking Pakistan's help in finding a negotiated settlement of the Afghan conflict. This development is surprising somewhat given the fact that not long ago, President Trump accused Pakistan of not doing enough in the fight against terrorism. In fact, only few weeks back, both Trump and Prime Minister Imran Khan had a war of words on Twitter. So the big question is, what has really prompted President Trump now to reach out to Prime Minister Imran Khan? Is it Afghanistan, or is it because they are running out of options in Afghanistan, so that's why they have to rely on Pakistan to find a political solution to this problem? So let me start the discussion with Mr. Tariq Pirzada. This is a perfect U-turn, I should say, from President Trump, because for last couple of years we have seen quite hard-hitting statement from him. He even accused Pakistan of lies and deceit, and more recently he said that Pakistan was giving refuge to Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, and now all of a sudden he is talking of cooperation and partnership and finding a political solution to the Afghan problem. How do you see it?
I agree with the content of your question. It has many answers in it, and let me elaborate on them. Number one, as we were talking off the air, it has been one of the longest U.S. war ever fought by the United States, outside the United States, particularly in Asia. And now the United States does not see any future course of action very clearly over there. And their objective, which was to eliminate Al-Qaeda, that was achieved long time ago. As far as Daesh and other groups are concerned, I think they are manageable groups. Their power is not beyond the capacity of any regional country to deal with them. So I believe the United States has come to the conclusion that it's time to wrap up the issue of Afghanistan and get out of there. And so it is in this perspective that after, let me go backtrack a little bit. You see, if you look at the psyche of
my question is that when this realization came, because only a few days back, we heard that how President was talking, more aggressively towards Pakistan, and in a few days' time, there is a realization on part of President Trump that look, that we need to wrap up in Afghanistan and we need the help from Pakistan.
To remind the people of Pakistan and the whole world, and to those people who are listening, it took about 6 months for the U.S. Foreign Office and the Pentagon to review the Afghan situation. It took them 6 months. Nobody came out with any concrete steps until after that period of time was over. And once that report was out, we learned immediately that things are shaping up in certain direction as far as Afghanistan was concerned. So if you remember, when the report came out and that was published, part of the deal was that we'll put pressure on Pakistan, but we'll need the support of Pakistan. But in the end, we have to talk to the Taliban, who were once called as, declared as terrorists by the United States 10, 15 years ago. Then the terminology changed. Then they were simply considered extremists, and that was their designation. They changed it. But now they are Taliban, who are the citizens of Pakistan, and there is no designation for them at the present time. So what I'm trying to say is that report actually was very comprehensive, and I was able to draw.
So in a way, what you are suggesting that at the end of the day, both Afghan government and the United States have realized that Taliban are reality because they control 60% of the territory, and they need to look beyond Taliban as extremists or militants because they are part and parcel of the Afghan society. So let me take the discussion forward. One contention is that why President Trump reached out to Prime Minister Imran Khan just days after when he hit out at Pakistan. Some people suggest that President Trump has this impulsive, nature. He used to say things that his advisors and diplomats really would not like to, hear. So this could be a possibility that he reached out to Prime Minister Imran Khan just to cool down the temperatures because they know that they need Pakistan's support. Do you think that could be the possibility?
Well, Kamran, if we look at the history of war on terror, in 2001, what they started with was the slogans that they wanted to eliminate Taliban, plus they wanted to catch Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden has been neutralized. Wherever he was neutralized, he has been neutralized, and they claimed it. And they didn't show body to anyone, but still they claimed it. And if we talk about the Taliban still are reality. They thought that, if they could eliminate few of the leaders of Taliban, then Taliban could have been nowhere to see. But right now, what we see is Taliban still are there. And it is very hard for any country to have a war going on in Afghanistan. Why? Because their stance always has been militia kind of stance, and it can never be countered fully. America has badly failed. America knows it. America could not eliminate Taliban completely. If we talk about Imran Khan during his campaign, before he became premier of this country, he has been saying time and again that we have to sit down and give peace a chance by inviting Taliban as well on the table.
And the US is now saying the same thing.
But
the issue is that what next? Because now they are desperate. They wanted to have negotiations with the Taliban, and they even had certain rounds of talks with the Afghan Taliban representatives in Doha, where they have their office.
The idea of having Taliban on the table, it actually initiated in 2004. I think it was a Bonn conference or whatever it was. There, they did not. Actually, they were, trying to find a peaceful solution to Afghanistan, and somebody in there said that if you are looking for a solution, a peaceful solution, then Taliban should have been here as well. But at that time, of course, Taliban were considered as a demonized group, so they were not there. And they have been checking on this again and again, but they did not, come with the terms that they have fully failed in Afghanistan. Now they have started realizing, yes, they have failed. Even if we take the last week's incident at Bagram Air Base, it was a constant, all day, it was a constant, rocket firing on Bagram Air Base, which is an evidence that they are actually, fortified in these sort of places.
Let me ask a question here that one of the reasons, because now even independent analysts also suggest that certainly the 17-year-long military campaign in Afghanistan by the United States is a clear failure. But we often hear that US policymakers and even US government there point fingers at Pakistan, that because Pakistan provide shelter to Afghan Taliban leadership, it is because of this reason that they could not defeat the Taliban. Do you think that this is true?
Let me put it this way. The United States has not been able to truly understand the problem that Pakistan faces. Pakistan is a victim of terror. There is no doubt about it. Until a few years ago, like 3-4 years ago, we had a massive wave of terror permeating Pakistan. And
it is because we sided with the US after 9/11 attacks.
Absolutely. This was a US imposed war that became a war of Pakistan because the terrorists simply permeated. And I'm not talking about the Afghan Taliban. I'm talking about the Pakistani Taliban, who literally started wreaking havoc in the tribal areas. So let me just get to the real point. The point is, the United States understands that they have been pressuring Pakistan just to scapegoat this country. They knew the real problem. The problem was there was no, despite 2 elections, there is no representative government in Kabul, number one. Number two, the Afghan Taliban, the citizens of Afghanistan, who were the rulers of Afghanistan from 1996 through 2001, that they have become a force to be reckoned with, that their military campaign, the so-called military surge during the Obama years, during which the number of the US forces went as high as 140,000, and all those policies that were designed to send a message to Taliban that we will crush you if you don't come to the negotiating table. The surge failed. The Taliban kept surging, kept expanding. Now, as you said,
that was my question. That was my question, because US believes that because that we provide, or the Pakistan provides shelter to Afghan Taliban leadership, and that's why they could not defeat them.
The one thing that the US could not understand, that Pakistan, all right, let's accept the blame. That Pakistan provided all, Pakistan is the miscreant, Pakistan did everything, okay? Pakistan cannot produce Afghan citizens. Afghan citizens, these are the Afghans, the so-called Taliban, who sacrificed their lives, which have been called either terrorists in the beginning, or, as I said, they're extremists in the second stage, and now they are Taliban, the negotiators. So all I'm trying to say is they have come to the conclusion that because Pakistan cannot be scapegoated forever, that they have to get out of Afghanistan, that there has to be stability within Afghanistan. So it's time to talk to Taliban. The process has already started. The Moscow conference also has taken place.
Although the US has objections, US has concerns over Moscow process because they believe that Russia probably have a different designs in Afghanistan.
True, but the issue is the United States knows it very clearly that the one country that is the most unpopular country within Afghanistan is not the United States. It is Moscow, because of their earlier campaign, during the years that was followed by the first war against Moscow and their planted regime in Kabul.
Okay, so, I have to interrupt here because we have to go for a break here.
Okay.
And after the break, of course, our discussion will continue, so stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Capital Connection, and we are discussing, of course, the letter written by US President Donald Trump to Prime Minister Imran Khan seeking Pakistan's help in finding a negotiated settlement of the Afghan conflict. So Faisal, the question is that Pakistan has already been facilitating the Afghan peace process. This is our stated position. Recently we saw that a number of senior Taliban leaders, including Mullah Brother, were also released, and it was done on the request of the US and Afghanistan. So when President Trump says or requests Prime Minister Imran Khan, please help us, bring the Taliban onto the negotiating table, when we are already extending, cooperation, facilitating the dialogue process, what else Pakistan can do you think?
First of all, with the start, Pakistan should, broker a peace deal in a way that they, first of all, initiate ceasefire.
No, when you say that Pakistan should broker a deal, that means you are suggesting that Pakistan has that much influence over the Taliban?
They have.
Because Pakistan have lately been saying that we are only facilitators, we
Taliban
are not mediators, and bringing Taliban to the negotiating table is the shared responsibility of all the countries.
Not with the government, not at the government level, but we need to understand one thing, that Taliban, they do have people in Pakistan who they can trust, who they can trust. And there are, you must have heard about Madrasa Haqqaniya. There are so many students who are actually Taliban, and they have been studying in Madrasa Haqqaniya. So there is an influence within Pakistan which can actually be a factor to bring them on the table.
Then why Pakistan is so far not using that influence, if that is the case?
Pakistan
because Pakistan believes that we also want peace and stability in Afghanistan because this is in our interest.
Pakistan is ready to use it. Pakistan was just waiting for a forward step by the Americans, which we have seen that it will come now. So as it will come now, first of all, Pakistan should suggest that there should be a ceasefire within Afghanistan and everywhere wherever they have been,
But Taliban are not agreeing to that, because that's the main question. Pakistan has been pushing it that all sides should agree to a ceasefire. But Taliban are not agreeing to that.
First of all, they have to broker that deal, and the next step should be that Taliban, they should be proposed with sort of like their presence within the Afghan Shura. Even if it's 35% or 40%, that would be a very viable kind of solution, which actually gives them a stake within the government sector or within the administration sector. That would actually make them, seeing
So what
it like
you are suggesting that Pakistan is key to Afghan endgame, but I believe that at least officially Pakistan would not like to have this kind of a tag, because they say that currently we can only facilitate, we cannot guarantee the success of the peace talks, we cannot become mediators. So how Pakistan should approach, because Pakistan had a bitter experience. We did broker direct negotiations between Afghan Taliban and also the Afghan government in Murree, and we know what happened after that.
Yeah, you remember Mullah Mansoor, he was slaughtered and rather simply dismantled in somewhere in Balochistan. So the United States, has been making mistakes. They shouldn't have done that. They scuttled the whole peace process at that time, shot Pakistan into the foot. And if somebody from the Pakistani side was also part and parcel of their proposal to eliminate Mullah Mansoor because he was giving the appearance of being a little too stubborn, I think that was incorrect. He was dealing with Chinese. He was part of the Murree process, and with little passage of time, he would have shown further flexibility. So that's Mullah Mansoor. That's over. All I'm trying to say is, now that the United States understands the reality on the ground, that the Taliban in Afghanistan are a military force and a force to be reckoned with. If they don't reach a settlement with them within Afghanistan now, that it is quite possible that with those few thousand NATO and US soldiers, they may be able to protect Kabul for a little longer, but then the rest of Afghanistan might get out of their hands altogether, and they just might have to wait for the day when the last helicopter lifted off the U.S. embassy in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh City. So what I'm trying to say is the United States has reached the right conclusion. It's not the question of coming to the table. Let me just to give a new direction to the discussion. The Taliban are already a part of the process. The issue is the United States want to expedite this process and resolve the issue of power sharing.
And how Pakistan can help.
Here is what I'm coming. Pakistan does not enjoy 60 or 80% influence on Afghans. We do have relations with them. We have been a part of them. They have been a part of us historically and politically and strategically. So right now, Pakistan is using all the contacts that it has at the request. I think they have already started doing it. You have seen what has happened in the last 3-4 days, 5 days. Pakistan has agreed to supply 40,000 mounds of wheat to Afghanistan just as a gift. Just yesterday, a special group of Afghan refugee children, students, they were invited to the Foreign Office. So Pakistan is very fast moving in that direction, sending a message to Washington.
But the question is, can Pakistan live up to the expectations of the US? Because when they repeatedly say that, look, help us, it means that so far they are not convinced with our efforts. They believe that we could do much more than we are actually doing at the moment.
Here is the problem that the United States has. They still have this notion somewhere in the back of their mind that they can somehow reach a settlement, bring about a settlement, political settlement within Afghanistan by giving a considerable share to the current government or the government that follows them, and still have Taliban participate in this process and make it and make their role a permanent feature by just giving 1/3 of 1/4 or something like that of representation of political power. I think that is a miscalculation by the United States. The
Should they hand over, the government affairs to Afghan Taliban then?
No. Here is what it is. I think the majority of the power share within Afghanistan will have to ultimately, either by gun or by the or on the negotiating table, it will have to go to Taliban.
Exactly.
They have the military force. The issue is not my or your desire. Everything in the end gets settled by what? By the ground reality.
But the question is, for example, that after 17 years of long military campaign, and at the end of the day, a peace deal looked like Taliban returning to power in Kabul, and all the people who are currently there have to take exile in foreign countries, then how would US and President Trump would sell this deal? Because that in a way would be a defeat if Taliban returned to power.
I think Americans, they have the same issue in their head as well, and they are actually planning in a way that very quickly they would not get out of Afghanistan like they did from Vietnam. Vietnam was something, it was unprecedented that they just, vanished from there. They do not want to get out of Afghanistan straight away. They will keep their presence in the region in shape of having their bases in Afghanistan. Here, very important thing for Pakistan is, while they are sitting on the table, Pakistan should bring up a topic or something of their own interest, that there is an it is an ample opportunity for Pakistan to talk about the issue that Indians' presence in Afghanistan, which actually bothers Pakistan. Why? Because it keeps on making our western border fragile border. Pakistan should raise that issue in front of Americans as well, and
I think probably the Americans aware of Pakistan's concern.
They already know
because this was one of the reasons they believe that why purportedly or allegedly we are backing the Taliban. In case there is anti-Pakistan government next door Afghanistan, at least we have someone to counter that.
And I think Pakistan...
so Americans already know that, Pakistan's concern.
Americans,
so
they know it very well. And if Trump doesn't know, then Pentagon, they know it.
No, the question is, do they really share Pakistan's perspective, or is it really exaggerated on our part? That's the main question.
It is not exaggerated. Everyone knows that Indians, they have a presence in Afghanistan, a very large presence, and they have kept that in Afghanistan for a reason. And that reason is to keep Pakistan busy on the western border. Kulbhushan Yadav is, a premier example that he's been caught, and he was somebody who has been, sitting in Afghanistan and Iran, and he's been, activated from there, and he was considered as a godfather of the terrorist, working in Balochistan. So these sort of examples, they are already there. We have captured their people.
It is because of these misgivings and concerns that both Pakistan and the US have not been able to find a common ground. So these are, major issues that we have to deal with. If we are to have some kind of a, peace deal in Afghanistan, we have to go for a break here. And after the break, our discussion will continue. So stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Capital Connection, and we are, of course, discussing the letter written by US President Donald Trump to Prime Minister Imran Khan, seeking his help for the negotiated settlement of Afghan conflict. So before the break, Faisal brought up another issue that you cannot discount the role of India in Afghanistan. So when Pakistan deal with the US, they will have to bring this issue as well, that look, that you cannot allow hostile agencies or Indians to have a presence in Afghanistan. This has been our long-standing concern. Do you think that the Indian role is exaggerated, or there is a genuine fear here in Pakistan?
Many of the attacks, if not most of the attacks, were those that were backed, managed, financed, and supported by the Indian agencies through Afghanistan into Pakistan. The whole issue of the terrorism, which is not an indigenous issue of Pakistan, it was the one that was exported from the soil of Afghanistan with Indian backing and financing into Pakistan. As my friend just co-panelist pointed out, Kulbhushan Yadav is a good example, and there are others.
So do you think that this would be the precondition of Pakistan giving support to Afghan peace deal or extending support to the US that unless that they address Pakistan's concern on India, there won't be any forward movement. And it is because of this reason we haven't
Here is
get any
my
movement.
take on this point. I think this whole issue of India being brought into this, equation, political equation into Afghanistan was a major disaster perpetrated by Mr. Barack Hussein Obama. His 8 years were 8 years of total devastation for the foreign policy of Pakistan. He considered India, while India still has 800 million starving people or who are below poverty line or at poverty line, he declared India as its economic power. I mean, that kind of things. So that gave the Indians a little, a sense of misunderstanding. They are already a mini superpower or regional superpower that they can dominate the political scene. So they simply sent a message to the White House during those years that, listen, we have to have a role in the region because we are your strategic partners. The meaning of the word strategic partner, which is a formal partnership between the two countries, and Shah Mahmood Qureshi also referred to that just in the last few days. And so let me come back to the point. The issue is the United States now understand under President Trump and under the revised policy, which is the result and the product of that 6 months of deliberations by the Pentagon, that there is no way that we can reach a settlement without reaching out to Taliban and reaching out to Islamabad. These were the two things which are literally sidelined and ignored during the Obama years. And there's one good thing, and I want to give credit to, not that I want to, give credit to Mr. Trump, that, he appears to be bullying a country at one time, but then he uses that technique just to create enough pressure so his demands can be brought to the table and the other party may be forced to come to some sense.
So in a way, he is very unpredictable person.
He is unpredictable.
So you can predict anything from him because that's what happened with North Korea.
Absolutely. North Korea, take a look. With Russia, he is still following the same policy.
And even China, they had a recent deal with on the trade war.
Just 2 days ago, they were discussing this issue in Argentina. And let me just quickly say, and what we learned was they reached a settlement time of 90 days within which Chinese have to make certain concessions, and the issue of tariffs was simply ignored. Let me just come back to this gentleman, the occupant of the White House. As I said in the very beginning, in his third comments about Pakistan, he said very clearly, I want to work with Pakistan. I would like to work with Pakistan. So this letter is a confirmation of that. I think the response from Islamabad is very good. They need to go all out to support him on this issue. It is in the interest of Pakistan that the settlement is reached in Kabul.
Okay, that is the main question that looked at, in a way, President Trump has now yet again offered an olive branch to Pakistan. Do you think that we are really prepared to, reciprocate, and we are really sincere in facilitating this Afghan peace process? Because otherwise, as you earlier pointed out, because we have this big concern in our minds that that Indians are creating trouble, inside Afghanistan, and India and US have a strategic partnership. So should we trust really the United States at the moment?
Well, to be honest, his interview with the Fox News, it was quite strange that he said the damn thing to Pakistan. Why? Because this is a region which is very important for the Americans, and especially Pakistan being a neighboring country to Afghanistan is very important for Americans, and Pakistan getting an olive branch, as you have mentioned. I believe still there is
Pakistan should respond.
Pakistan should respond with the positive, of course, with the positive steps just to create peace within this, within Afghanistan, so that peace can be restored back in Pakistan as well.
No, because their expectations are that we still have considerable influence over the Afghan Taliban. We are the only country that can persuade them to come to the negotiating table or negotiate a team that has the full authority. Do you think that Pakistan should do that and Pakistan would do that?
Should do it. Why? Because it would be, putting Pakistan back on a very important stage. We know that Pakistan had very good relations with the Americans, especially in post 9/11 era. Only when Barack Obama, he started saying that Pakistan needs to do more, do more, do more. That's when the problems it started created for Pakistan. Right now, Americans, they very well know that region is very important for several reasons. Number one, this is a region where half of the population of the world lives. If you take, China, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh is half of the population of the world. And second, very important reason for them is that there are four declared nuclear powers: Russia, China, Pakistan, and India. And there is another one where we have speculations about Iranians that they might be having nuclear power as well. So this is a very important region for Americans. If America still wants to lead the world, the only way they have
remains
is,
to be seen that
they need to play their role.
It remains to be seen that how Pakistan will respond, and whatever steps Pakistan will take from here on in, whether that would convince the Trump administration. We have to go for a break here. And after the break, so far we have restricted our discussion to Afghanistan because soon after this letter, U.S. Special Envoy for Afghanistan and Pakistan, Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad, also visited Pakistan. Today he met with Prime Minister Imran Khan. And Imran Khan, while also talked about Afghanistan, at the same time he emphasized the need for having frequent exchanges between the two countries on bilateral fronts to discuss education, health, and investment. Whether these areas are priority of the US government, we will discuss this after the short break. Welcome back. You're watching Capital Connection, and of course we are discussing the latest development with regard to Pakistan and US relationship, and the big highlight, of course, was the letter recently written by President Trump to Prime Minister Imran Khan seeking his help for a negotiated settlement of Afghan conflict. Before that, we talked about, US priority is certainly Afghanistan. They need a face saving. But what Prime Minister Imran Khan said during meeting with Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad, that there is a need to have frequent exchanges and bilateral dialogue between the two countries when it comes to the bilateral trade, investment, education and health sectors. Do you think that in any manner this is US priority?
It will become US priority once the Afghan issue is settled. Because the United States needs a major country like Pakistan on its side also.
They may leave this region high and dry.
Okay, listen, this is the reality at the present time. We don't have a fundamental conflict with the US policy in the region. We don't have a fundamental conflict with the US policy. Our policy is the same as the US policy. At the end result, that there should be peace in Afghanistan.
That was the reason we were part and parcel of many alliances that US led.
Absolutely.
Previously.
We never had a problem. The problem becomes when the United States tries to achieve certain goals by bypassing Pakistan. For example, as I pointed out, when you bring in India as an irritant for no reason, a country that does not even share border with the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, which is the bordering country of Pakistan, with whom we share thousands of kilometers of border, and with whom we have historical relations. That means keeping in view the history of Afghanistan and its relations with Pakistan. How could any person sitting in the White House or in the Pentagon or in the State Department reach a different conclusion? But somehow Obama government simply did not pay proper attention to that. So let me come to your point. The reality at the present time is the United States still wants a role for the non-Taliban, and a major role for the non-Taliban civil population, civil leadership in Afghanistan. That's not going to happen. When they say they want the role of Pakistan to pressure Taliban, actually this is exactly what they are doing. They want us to put enough pressure so somehow Afghan Taliban can accept a settlement offered by Washington. This is where the problem is. The problem is not that of Taliban's coming to the table. They're already on the table. The issue is, what is the share, what is the formula of power sharing that has to be agreed? So this is very important.
That's $1 billion
And
question.
let me just come say, can Pakistan deliver that? Let me say very honestly, Pakistan can deliver to a certain extent, and this is the pressure. That is a lot of pressure that Afghans. And listen, the Afghan Taliban are not going to fly into space after the United States leaves. They'll have to also deal with Pakistan. The access to the Arabian Sea comes through Pakistan. The entire population structure, the mix of population between the two countries,
And that was the reason
remains
probably now they have maintained relations with Russia, they maintained relations with China,
Very
they
smart
maintained
people.
relations with Iran because they know the reality. But my question was particularly because this was, of course, US priority. Now, our priority, of course, at the same time that we want that our relationship should not be one-dimensional, should not be security-driven. There should be other facets of relationship.
May I just add one thing? I was just going to talk about, the US agreeing to come to help us in certain other areas. As a matter of fact, the Imran government has already announced in the last 3 days that Exxon, the biggest oil company in the world, that will be opening its
Re-entering after 27 years.
They have already opened or will be opening their offices, and come February or early March, the drilling will start in the Arabian Sea.
But still many people...
And let me just say, Coca-Cola agreeing to expand their operations in Pakistan, bringing in massive investments. Similarly, other companies. I think all this cannot happen in vacuum. So there is... I would not exaggerate that. I would not exaggerate that. There is some movement on that front.
But there is a view that US could have done much more, or even Pakistan could have negotiated a better deal, because we always had this one-dimensional relationship. That's why some people compare it with CPAC, because China, on the other hand, not investing in our defense projects, but they are also spending on projects that would directly benefit the common people. Here, the US is really a failure. Do you think, but the main question is, even after Afghan peace deal, US would really have the kind of bilateral relationship where Pakistan, will have trade, investment from the US? Do you think that US would do that, or just forget about it?
Well, there will be relationship between both of the countries. Reason being, there are a large number of Pakistanis who are actually living in America, and they are part and parcel of the departments in there, and they are serving in the medical departments, they are serving in the engineering departments. So the relationship would always remain there, and I think US knows the importance of Pakistan for America and the region as well. So the relationship would always remain there. Secondly, coming back to Zalmay Khalilzad meeting our premier, and our premier proposing, or asking for talking on trade as well. I don't think that Zalmay Khalilzad is mandated by Trump administration with those things, but of course there will be a sort of message going from Zalmay Khalilzad to
No, but the underlining message, because US is talking about their priority, but Prime Minister Imran Khan is also underlining that while you need Pakistan's support in Afghanistan, but at the same time Pakistan do not want relationship based on just on Afghanistan. We want much broader relationship between the two countries.
There is very, very important thing I want to add in here
very quickly, because we have to conclude the discussion.
Traditionally, Pak-US relations, they're based upon what US wants in the region. They were never, sort of thing like give and take. Pakistan served, I would say, US in this region during the Cold War. Pakistan served again in this region in war on terror. Why I'm saying this? Because Pakistan has been actually, whatever's been going on in this region, it actually favored Americans rather than more favoring to Pakistan.
But that again were on the security front, and probably, Pakistan needs to create far more create certain interdependencies with the US, where our relationship should not look like that we are only serving
And
the
this
US.
is
We
what
should have,
Premier understands.
Okay, we
Our
have to
Premier
conclude our
understands,
discussion.
and
Many thanks.
This is what
Let
he's
me
doing.
just say one word in the
Very
end.
quick comment.
You see, there's been a paradigm shift within Pakistan. The emergence of China as a major economic and military power. Our axis of interest has changed from Washington to Beijing. So that is a very major factor in US in the end coming back and talking to us, not only for the sake of Afghanistan, but long after the Afghan issue is settled, and by the time the things change in the next 10 years, Pakistan, I really believe, will be a little more powerful and more meaningful country.
Okay, on that
And,
positive note, we have to conclude our discussion. Many thanks indeed, Mr. Tariq Pirzada and Raja Faisal. That's it from this edition of Capital Connection. Thanks for watching.